You know what really gets under my skin? Spending 20 minutes fighting with a piece of wood that should have taken 2. And I'm not talking about complicated joinery or some fancy technique you need years to master. I'm talking about those everyday problems that make you want to throw your hands up and say, there's got to be a better way. Well, friend, I've got news for you. There is a better way. Actually, there are 8 better ways, and I'm about to show you every single one of them. Some of these are brand new tools hitting the market, and some have been hiding in plain sight. You just didn't know what they could really do. Stick with me here, because we're starting with some pretty clever solutions. But by the time we get to number 8, you're going to wonder how you ever worked without it. Here's what we're doing today. I'm going to walk you through 8 tools that each solve a specific, annoying problem in the workshop. Not big problems like how do I cut a board, we all know that. I'm talking about those frustrating little things that eat up your time and patience. Each tool we're looking at either just hit Amazon in the last year or 2, or it's been around forever, but nobody talks about its real potential. And here's the thing, each one gets more impressive than the last. We're building up to some solutions that are going to make you rethink how you've been doing things for years. So, grab your coffee and let's start solving some problems. Number 1, self-centering punch. Let's start simple. You've used a center punch before. Tap it. Make a divot. Keeps your drill bit from wandering. Basic stuff. But here's the problem. How many times have you punched a hole, started drilling, and realized you were off-center by just enough to make it look sloppy? Especially when you're trying to center a hole on the edge of a board. You measure, you double-check, and somehow it's still not quite right. The self-centering punch has a spring-loaded sleeve around the tip. You put it against the edge of your workpiece, and those little arms automatically center the punch point in the middle. No measuring, no math, no hoping for the best. I picked one up on Amazon for about $15, and the first time I used it, I literally laughed out loud. It's one of those "why didn't someone think of this 30 years ago" moments. Cabinet hardware. Game changer. What used to take careful measuring and occasionally messing up now takes 3 seconds per pull. Line it up. Tap it. Drill. Done. Works perfectly for dowel joints, shelf pins, anytime you need to drill dead center on an edge. Simple tool. Solves an everyday problem. Costs less than lunch. That's our warm-up. Number 2, the digital angle finder. Now, before you say, yeah, I've seen angle finders, hear me out, because the newer digital ones with magnetic bases are completely different animals. Here's the situation. You need to match an existing angle or set your saw to exactly 22.5 degrees for an octagon. The old way. Bevel gauge, protractor, hope and pray you got it right. These newer digital angle finders stick magnetically right onto your saw blade and tell you exactly what angle you're at, down to 1/10 of a degree. Want 0 degrees. Adjust until it says 0.0. You know you're square. But here's the game changer. They have a relative mode. Stick the gauge on whatever angle you're trying to match. Hit 0, and that becomes your reference point. Move it to your saw blade, and it tells you exactly how many degrees off you are. No transferring, no guessing. I resisted these 4 years. I've got squares and protractors. I don't need another gadget. Then I borrowed one for a railing project, and within 10 minutes, I'd ordered my own. About $35 to $50 on Amazon GemRed. Makes a good one. You know what I use mine for most? Setting up my jointer tables to make sure they're sounds boring, but it's the difference between smooth boards and ones. With a little hump, you don't notice until you're trying to glue them up. Number 3, the multi-mark layout tool. Let's talk about marking the same measurement over and over again. Building a bookshelf. You need 20 shelf pin holes on each side, all spaced exactly the same. The old way. Measure from the bottom, make a mark. Measure again, make another mark. Do this 40 times and pray you don't lose count, or your shelves will be crooked for the next 20 years. The multi-mark is a ruler with sliding markers. Set your first marker at 4 inches, your second at 8 inches. Now you've got pointers at exactly 4-inch intervals. Line it up. Mark both points. Slide the tool up so the bottom pointer hits your top mark. Marque again. Slide, marque, slide. What used to take 20 minutes now takes 3. And every mark is perfectly spaced because you're using the previous mark as reference, not measuring each one individually. Craig makes one for about $25, or there are generic versions for $15. Either works fine. You can set multiple intervals at once. So, if you need shelf pins every 4 inches and dado grooves at different spacing, set markers for both and do all your layout in one pass. Pro tip: stack multiple boards, clamp them together, run your multi-mark down all of them at once. Every board gets identical spacing. I use this for deck boards, fence, pickets, any repetitive layout work. Number 4. The corner chisel. Here's a scenario. You just cut a beautiful dado groove with your router. Nice, clean walls. Perfect depth. But the corners are rounded because your bit is round, and you need square corners because what you're fitting has square edges. So you grab a regular chisel and try to carefully square those corners by hand. If you're like me, you slip at least once and ding something up. The corner chisel has a blade bent at a perfect 90 degrees. Press it into the corner, and it cuts both walls at once, giving you a perfect square corner in one motion. I thought, how often am I really squaring corners? Turns out, all the time. Dados for shelves, mortises for hinges. Anytime you're fitting one square piece into a groove in another, they run about $20 to $35 an Erics, and Stanley make good ones. Get a 1/4 inch and 3/4 inch to start. Here's where this really shines. Hinge mortise. You rough out the mortise with a regular chisel, then hit each corner once with a corner chisel. Perfect square corners. Takes 30 seconds on a door with 3 hinges. That saves me 10 minutes of fussy work. Keep it scary sharp. A dull corner chisel crushes wood fibers instead of cutting them cleanly. All right, we're halfway through. If you're enjoying this and learning something, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and give this a thumbs up. It helps me keep making videos that solve real problems, instead of just showing off fancy tools you'll never use. Okay, let's keep going. Number 5. The contour gauge profile. You need to fit a piece of wood against something irregular: a stone fireplace, a wavy wall, existing trim with a weird edge, cutting a countertop around a pipe, the old way, compass, cardboard, template, or just keep cutting and test fitting until it works. Time consuming, and you almost always end up with gaps. The contour gauge has thin pins held in a frame. Press it against whatever shape you're copying, and the pins slide in to match the contour. Exactly. Lock 'em, pull it away, and you've got a perfect profile. The newer ones have locks that actually work. Come in different lengths. I've got 5-inch and 10-inch, and some have magnetic backs. But the real improvement, the better ones work on both sides. Press it against your shape. Lock it. Flip it over. Trace. You can transfer from vertical to horizontal without mental gymnastics. I use mine constantly. Baseboard around its stone hearth. Contour gauge. Shelf fitting into a closet with wavy walls. Contour gauge. Countertop around plumbing. Absolutely. Real example. Built-in bookcase in an old house. Walls weren't straight. Corners weren't square. Ceiling curved where it met the wall. Would have spent an afternoon on test fits with the contour gauge. Transferred the profiles. Made my cuts. Fit perfectly first try. Saved 3 hours of aggravation. $10 to $30 on Amazon. Make sure the pins move smoothly and the lock holds. Number 6. The parallel jaw clamps. Bar clamps. Everybody's got them. You're gluing up a panel. You crank down the clamps. And what happens? The jaws twist. One side's tight, the other's barely touching, and your glue-up is sitting there cockeyed. This is why parallel jaw clamps exist. And I'm not talking about the $100 Bessies. I'm talking about the newer, affordable versions that actually keep the jaws parallel without breaking the bank. Traditional bar clamps have one fixed jaw and one that slides. When you tighten, the sliding jaw tips and twists parallel. Jaw clamps have dual rails, 2 bars, instead of one, so the jaw can't twist. It stays flat no matter how much pressure you apply. Why does this matter? Even pressure across the entire joint. If your clamp jaws twist, you get tons of pressure on one edge, almost nothing on the other. That means weak joints, gaps, panels that aren't flat. I fought with regular clamps for years, shimming, adjusting, getting frustrated. Finally bought 4 parallel jaw clamps. There are cheaper versions from Pony and D. Jorgensen for about half the Bessie price. First, tabletop glue up. I almost couldn't believe it. Put the clamps on, tightened them. The panel stayed flat. No twisting, no shimming, no fighting. When I took the clamps off, dead flat. But here's where they really shine. Face gluing edge band to plywood. Laminating boards, face. Regular clamps are thick and clumsy. You can't get pressure where you need it. Parallel jaws are wide and flat. And because they stay parallel, you can clamp right at the edge and get perfect pressure. Get at least a 4 in 24 or 36-inch length. Use them for critical glue-ups. Use your regular clamps for everything else. Pony Jorgensen parallel clamps are the sweet spot. $30 to $45 each. Work great. Number 7. The flush trim saw. You're installing wooden plugs to cover screw holes, or throatnins sticking out past the surface, or dowels proud of the surface by an 1/8 inch. You need to cut them flush without scratching the surrounding wood. Most people grab a chisel and carefully pare them down, or use a pole saw and try really hard not to scratch and get mixed results. The flush trim saw has a flexible blade with teeth that have 0 set. They don't stick out wider than the blade, so the blade lays completely flat against your work. While you cut, the teeth are angled so when you lay the saw flat and pull, it cuts whatever's sticking up without touching the surface beneath it. Like magic the first time you use one. This isn't just for plugs and dowels. Trimming door casings so baseboard can slide under? Flush trim saw. Kumiko work with little pieces sticking past the frame. Flush trim saw. Edge banding with tiny overhang. Flush trim saw. I even use mine for wooden shims after installing cabinets. Most people score and snap them, but they don't break clean. Flush saw cuts them perfectly. The blade is thin and flexible. Let it do the work. Don't force it or you'll bend it. Light, steady strokes. $15 to $30. Japanese Z-Saw brand is excellent for about $20. Western-style Stanley versions are cheaper, but work fine. Pro tip: when cutting plugs flush, leave them a hair proud, maybe a 64th in, sand the rest. Prevents accidentally cutting into surrounding wood if your saw isn't perfectly flat. Keep it sharp when it dulls. Replace the blade about $12 for Japanese-style replacement blades. Here we are. Number 8. I saved this for last because it's going to sound strange, but this tool solves a problem that's frustrated woodworkers forever. Number 8. The card scraper. A card scraper? That's not new. You're right, it's been around over 100 years. It's literally just a piece of steel. But here's the thing. Most people have no idea what this can actually do. And the newer ergonomic holders make it possible to use them the way they were meant to be used. Here's the problem. You've sanded a piece 120, 180, maybe 220 grit. You think you're done? Then you put finish on, and suddenly scratches and mill marks appear that you swear weren't there. Or you've got figured wood curly maple. Bird's eye and, no matter which direction you sand, you get tear out because grain runs every direction. The card scraper, when sharpened correctly, creates a tiny burr along the edge. You hold it at the right angle, push or pull it across wood, and that burr lifts off Here's the magic. Because it's scraping, not cutting with or against grain. It doesn't care which direction grain runs. Curly wood, doesn't matter. Interlocked grain, doesn't matter. The scraper takes off a perfect, glass-smooth layer regardless of grain direction. Most people give up because they can't get them sharp or can't hold the right angle. This is where new holders come in. Veritas and Lielsen make great ones there, are cheaper. Amazon versions too that hold the blade at perfect angle and give you handles so you're not holding. Sharp steel with bare hands, but you still need to sharpen properly. 1. File the edge square. 2. Hone it flat on a stone. 3. Use a burnisher to turn a burr. That burr does the cutting. When it dulls, just burnish a new one. Takes 30 seconds. What you can do with a properly sharpened scraper. Surface prep. After initial sanding, a few passes with the scraper gives you smoother surface than any sandpaper can achieve. You're removing material by scraping, not abrading, so you're not loading grain with dust. Finish goes on. Cleaner. Fixing. Tear out. Don't sand it tool. Create a low spot. Use the scraper to level everything around it. You control exactly how much material you remove and where. Glue. Squeeze out. Those dried glue beads that squish out during sand them and you'll gum up sandpaper and smear glue into grain. Scraper pops them right off. Finish removal. Refinishing furniture. Scraper removes old varnish in controllable layers. No chemicals. No dust storm from sanding. I've stripped entire tabletops with just a scraper wood underneath was pristine. Real example. Table out of curly cherry. Beautiful wood, nightmare to work with. Grain reverses every quarter inch. Planer, caused tear out. Spent an hour with card scraper. Surface went from disaster to gloss. Scraper didn't care about grain direction. Just lifted perfect shavings and left a surface that needed almost no work before finishing. What you need. Proper burnisher. Can't create good burr without one. 15 to 20 bucks. Lasts forever. Quality scrapers. Cheap ones are soft steel that won't hold a burr. Spend extra for hardened steel. Feel the burr. Run your thumb across the edge. You should feel a tiny hook. No hook means no burr, and the scraper won't cut. Right angle. Most people hold it to vertical. Want it tipped at about 75 to 80 degrees. Too vertical won't cut. Too far over will chatter. Let it work. Don't press hard. If you're pressing hard and nothing happens, burr's dull or angle's wrong. Sharp scraper cuts with moderate pressure. Veritas holder is 45 bucks with 2 blades. Cheaper versions run 25 and work almost as well. Old-timers used to say the card scraper was the most important finishing tool in the shop. Not glamorous, not high-tech, but most important because you can have the fanciest saws and rooters money can buy. But if your surface prep isn't right before you finish, none of that matters. Finish shows every flaw. The card scraper gets you from pretty good to perfect. It's the difference between looking homemade and looking professional. There you have it. 8 tools that solve real problems. We started simple center punches and angle finders and worked up to tools that can literally change how you work. You don't need all of these, but I guarantee at least a few solved problems you're dealing with, right? Now, in your own shop. Maybe it's the parallel jaws stopping your glue-ups from twisting. Maybe it's the corner chisel saving time on hinge it. Maybe it's the card scraper. Finally, letting you work that figured wood you've been avoiding. These aren't gimmicks. These solve real, frustrating issues we all deal with. If you found this helpful, let me know in the comments which tool you're most excited about. And if there's a tool I missed that solves an impossible problem, share it. I love learning this stuff as much as you do. Hit that subscribe button for more videos on tools and techniques that make woodworking easier and more enjoyable. Because that's what this is about, making things with our hands and solving problems along the way. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.